Welcome to today's explainer. Listen, if you're a non-resident Indian, an OCI card holder, or honestly, even if you're just planning to move abroad soon, we need to have a really serious conversation today. We're going to uncover what is, frankly, a massive legal blind spot for the Indian diaspora. It's something that flies completely under the radar, but failing to understand it, well, it can cost you dearly. You see, millions of people out there are managing global assets, sending money back home, keeping their old savings accounts open in India, and they have absolutely no idea they might be stepping right into a regulatory trap. And I want to start right here with this number, 3. Now, why is this so important? Because there's a law in India that can slap you with a civil penalty equal to 3 times your transaction value. Yes, 3 times. And if the amount isn't quantifiable, you could face flat fines plus a continuing penalty of 5,000 rupees for every single day the violation continues. It's a terrifying consequence, and the crazy part is, most NRIs unknowingly trigger it just by doing things they assume are perfectly normal.
Okay, I know those penalties sound scary, but don't panic. Here is our roadmap for today. First, the hidden FEMA trap. Second, FEMA versus income tax. Third, the top 10 NRI violations. Fourth, penalties and RBI compounding. And finally, 5, your compliance checklist. Let's jump in. Section 1, the hidden FEMA trap, and exactly why the diaspora is so vulnerable. The law we're dealing with here is the Foreign Exchange Management Act, better known as FEMA. Administered by the RBI, it is the absolute strict rulebook governing all cross-border transactions and asset holdings for Indian residents and NRIs. So here's why the diaspora is so uniquely vulnerable to this. When you pack up your life and move abroad, you obviously acquire NRI status midlife. But guess what? Regulators and banks in India do not proactively reach out to warn you that your status has changed. There's literally no grace period communication. Your bank isn't going to just automatically convert your accounts for you. So this leaves incredibly smart, well-intentioned people mistakenly following resident rules that just no longer apply to them, accidentally breaking federal law in the process. Let's move to Section 2, FEMA versus income tax, which is really the root of all this confusion. And this right here brilliantly illustrates exactly where things go wrong. Look at how these two entirely different laws define you. The Income Tax Act, which is administered by the CBDT, generally looks at the number of days you spend in India. Typically that 182-day rule to figure out if you need to pay taxes. But FEMA, which is overseen by the RBI, defines residency based on your intent. If you leave India for an indefinite period to work or live, boom, you instantly become an NRI under FEMA. So what does this all mean? It means you can actually be classified as an NRI for income tax purposes, but still be considered a resident under FEMA, or vice versa, in the exact same year. Being compliant with your taxes does absolutely not guarantee you're compliant with your foreign exchange transactions. All right, Section 3, the top 10 NRI violations. This is essentially an audit of everyday scenarios, and get ready because almost every NRI has accidentally done at least one of these. First up, bank accounts and remittances. Violation number 1 is by far the most common, keeping a standard resident savings account open after you become an NRI. Under FEMA, you absolutely must convert this to an NRO account within a reasonable time frame. Violation 2 is sending money out of India under the Liberalized Remittance Scheme, or LRS. LRS is strictly for residents. NRIs are not covered by it and have to use a completely different set of rules. Violation 3 is a massive one, repatriating more than $1 million per financial year from your NRO account without the proper documentation, like your Forms 15CA and 15CB. And violation 4, holding a joint NRE account with a resident Indian who actually isn't a close relative. Now, what's really interesting is how casually we handle property and loans back home. Violation 5, NRIs and OCIs absolutely cannot purchase agricultural land, farmhouses, or plantation property in India. You can inherit it, sure, but you cannot buy it. Violation 6 is casually lending money in rupees to a resident Indian friend without checking specific FEMA conditions or giving a foreign currency loan without getting prior RBI approval. And violation 7, taking a rupee loan against your NRE deposits and then using those funds in India for prohibited purposes like real estate speculation or relending. That instantly triggers FEMA. Rounding out our top 10, we've got foreign assets and returnees. Violation 8, an NRI investing in a proprietary concern or a partnership firm in India without getting prior RBI approval. Violation 9 is failing to disclose foreign assets in Indian tax returns. When you convert back to a resident, you've got to deal with previously held foreign accounts perfectly.
Which leads us to violation 10, returning NRIs failing to convert their foreign bank accounts within the prescribed timelines. You see, the Indian diaspora holds hundreds of billions in global assets, and when they return home, every single cent of that becomes subject to strict FEMA rules.
Okay, so if you're watching this and maybe your heart is beating just a little bit faster because you just realized you still have an old resident savings account sitting in Mumbai, or maybe you bought a small farm a few years ago, take a deep breath. I know it's a terrifying thought to realize you've accidentally broken a federal law that has a 3x penalty attached to it. But listen, you are not alone, and there is actually a built-in off-ramp for these exact situations.
Which brings us perfectly to Section 4, Penalties and RBI Compounding, the off-ramp for mistakes.
The crucial solution here is something called FEMA compounding. Compounding is essentially an administrative self-correction process. It allows you to voluntarily disclose your mistake to the RBI, pay a calculated settlement penalty, which is based on the amount and duration of the violation, and completely resolve the issue without any criminal prosecution whatsoever. The RBI handles hundreds of these applications every single year. It is specifically designed for regular people who made genuine administrative mistakes and just want to get compliant. And I really want to draw a very hard, reassuring line for you right here. There is this big myth out there that any FEMA violation means the Enforcement Directorate, the ED, is going to show up and raid your house. That is simply not true. The vast majority of regular NRI mistakes are civil in nature, and they go straight through the RBI for compounding. The ED route, that is strictly reserved for serious, willful, large-scale fraud or money laundering. If you just made a genuine error with your savings account or a property purchase, you fall entirely under the civil RBI compounding bucket. Jail time is incredibly rare, and it's certainly not meant for the average NRI making a paperwork mistake. Finally, Section 5, your compliance checklist. Let's get into the actionable steps. Let's see how all this builds into a highly practical checklist for your financial life. Number 1, call your bank and convert that old resident savings account to an NRO account immediately. Number 2, just cross agricultural land right off your investment list in India. Number 3, if you're moving large sums out of your NRO account, anything near that $1 million mark, make absolutely sure you get your CA to file Forms 15CA and 15CB. Number 4, always disclose your foreign assets on your tax returns when filing as a resident. And number 5, if you're looking at this list right now and realize you've already made a mistake, consult a FEMA-qualified professional and proactively compound the violation with the RBI before it ever actually becomes an issue. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, really important thought. Have you audited your global financial footprint today? The rules literally change the moment you cross borders, and assuming your old banking habits still apply is just a massive risk. Take the time this week to review your accounts, check your property holdings, and ensure your hard-earned assets are fully compliant. Because ignorance of the law isn't a defense, but proactive correction, that is always your best strategy. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, happy auditing!